Good evening, everyone. In the front. I'd like to welcome you here, everyone in this room. We have a super packed room. That's fantastic. And also the people watching over there, the live stream on YouTube. Welcome from everywhere you watch. My name is Fabio Zünd, and I'm very excited to be the host for this presentation event of the 2024 ETH Game Programming Lab. We have set a new record. We have 85 students here in the front who have worked super hard during this semester in 16 teams to create 16 video games from scratch. So everything you'll see today will be the product of their work from this course. We'll start with presentations here in this room, followed by an audience award and a jury award for the teams. And then we'll move to another room. We'll show you later how to get there, where we'll have the apéro and vernissage and after party. The jury award will be given out by Nick Grover from Studio Gobo, who will join us in a minute on Zoom. For those of you who are here for the first time, I want to give a quick introduction to this course. The Game Programming Lab is a master's level laboratory. It's a capstone course that builds on top of the visual computing specialization track here at the computer science department. So the concept for our students is that they take a course towards the end of their studies here at ETH and apply everything they have learned. And then apply it to this very fun and exciting task of creating a video game. We've been teaching this course since 2007, so today is our 18th year. Going to show you a trailer that shows some of the highlights of these 18 years. Every year, we're really impressed by the creativity and energy of the students that they put into the course. So we're super proud always to show these games. Please enjoy the trailer. We have a new theme in this course, and this year the theme is grocery store. And because we have a lot of teams, and to make it even more interesting, we have defined 3 sub-themes. And they are fruits and veg, sweet treats, and frozen goods. So all things you find in a grocery store. So we assigned each of the 16 teams to one of these sub-themes. So the games must creatively follow the assigned sub-theme. Now, we're going to start with the presentations of these 14 weeks journeys from raw idea to finished, polished game. And remember, there's an audience award at the end. So that means you can vote, and that means also pay close attention. And we're going to start with the teams that have been assigned to the fruit and veg theme. First team is the allegory of the carrot, and I'll start with the trailer, and at the same time the team can already come here and set up. Here we go.
Okay, so hi everyone to the game presentation for our game, The Allegory of the Carrot, A Journey to Freedom and Back. So let's start off with a question. Why do we play games? One answer might be that we want to feel strong, like Donkey Kong, for example. Or maybe we want to be, or have the power of our favorite superhero. Or maybe we just want to feel in control of our lives for once. Well, our game won't do any of that. It will make you feel weak, powerless, and ineffective. So the question is, how do we do that? So you play as a carrot that cannot fight in any way. So the only thing it can do is run away. It is also constantly chased by a donkey that tries to eat it. And however, it can be used to defeat your enemies as well. And finally, we wanted to make everyone feel unique and special. So no two runs should feel the same. And the main goal is to escape from a supermarket. So Andre will now tell you about the implementation.
All right, so we wanted to have a roguelike game. So each time you play start, or you press start, the game starts over and you don't have anything from the previous runs. Now, we wanted to have every run, make every run be different. So every run should be completely unique. And to achieve that, we have a completely randomly generated floor layout, which is completely different every single run. Now, as Darius mentioned before, we have a donkey which chases the carrot, and we want to use that donkey to kill our enemies. So we kind of had to find a way to make the donkey both kind of a menace and a mascot at the same time. Now, here you can see one of our initial versions, and as you can see, we have a carrot which is trying to evade a donkey. Right now, it failed, and we kind of already liked that version quite a lot. However, we got some feedback that maybe the visuals aren't quite there yet, so we did some minor adjustments along the way. So here you can see the next version. I think the visuals look a lot better, and again, we were quite in love with that version. However, arguably, the speed might not be as fast as it should be, and also the enemy set is a bit lacking. So without further ado, this here is our final version, which I'll just let play and you can enjoy. And yeah. All right, I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. And yeah, maybe you can even do better than we did here. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Pascal, who will tell you about the challenges that we faced while developing that game.
Thank you. So, since the carrot cannot fight, the main challenge of the game is to still make it fun. So if you can't fight, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to have gameplay mechanics evolving around positioning, spacing, and dodging attacks. And then for balancing, it's also a bit hard because we have the carrot, we have the donkey, we have the enemies. And the speeds of these entities have to be balanced both such that the player can escape the donkey can chase the enemies. But it should be easy, should be fair, and challenging. So Another thing that we initially wanted to do is have all these upgrades, and for each upgrade, design this cool trade-off with some downside as well. During gameplay testing, we figured out, though, that most players just completely ignored the upgrades because the downsides were just too extreme. So we had to redesign all the upgrades, and now they're actually good. The visual theme is also something that's quite challenging. None of our team members had any previous experience with visual design. Thankfully, they are not lacking in skill, though, so we ended up just fine. Then for some fun facts, the follow... Oh, very cool. Yeah. Okay, sorry. We don't have a lot of time. Anyway, so we had to redesign some systems, follow logic a lot. We managed to implement 3 bosses and 6 enemy types in just around 10 commits per day on average over the entire duration. And there's also a seed system for the speedrunners in the audience. And don't forget, this is the QR code to download the game. It's on itch.io. It's available for Windows and Mac. So for free, by the way. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. That was the game, The Allegory of the Carrot. This year, I'm particularly proud on the creative names of the games. Next, we have Tiny Shopping.
Hi, everyone. We are the team behind Tiny Shopping, a unique, real-time strategy game about insects that try to live in a grocery store. And like all successful projects, our journey started with an idea. So we had the theme that was mentioned before. We knew it had something to do with the grocery store and the fruits and veggies section, to be more specific. And we also knew that we wanted ants. Why? They are cool, they are clever, and kind of cute, to be honest. We wanted that, and since we all like strategy, we wanted some game that has a strategy aspect. So we drew a few sketches. So these are the very early sketches we had. You can see it should be top-down, it should be 2D, it should have ants, and it should have food in the grocery store, right? And the final thing we had to decide is how should the player interact with the ants? And we looked at what nature does, because it's usually a good idea, and copied the pheromone mechanic. So instead of actually controlling each individual ant, the player can only place pheromones, and the pheromones will affect all the ants that are close enough to smell it, like nature does it. And we are a group of computer scientists, so to check whether the idea was actually any good, we did what any computer scientist would do. We created a board game that does not use any computers. Makes sense. So we printed out a board. It looks like a grocery store. We got some Lego bricks, and we have these nice little frogs here that should be insects, but it's as close as we can get that point. And we played it on a Friday morning on a real table. And it turns out it's actually quite fun. So the idea seemed to work. You could control the colony by simply placing pheromones. And another important thing we noticed here is that with only 3 types of pheromones, it was enough to control the colony. So the yellow Lego brick there is a pheromone that is used to guide the ants towards food. The blue one is used to guide them back home, and the red one is to tell them that they should fight. And then we were confident enough to try and program something. And we did the exact same thing, but on a computer. So it is the exact same map. And we tried out if all that worked on a real table also works on a computer, and it turned out it did. Amazing. Until both players went for the center of the map, and then we have this. There are 19 ants in this picture. I challenge you to find them all. I can't. The players couldn't. And that was kind of the major challenge that we had during the development, to make the game clear such that the players can see what's happening, even though it's pretty fast and pretty small at times. So we changed absolutely everything. We redrew all the assets, we changed perspective, and it turned out something like this. So that's what it looked like and kind of still looks like. And what you notice here is that we went for a split screen approach. So both players have half of the screen that they can control and move around, zoom in, zoom out, such that they can see whatever they want to see. We redrew all the assets. As I've mentioned, we created music for it, so it's all done by hand. And it still works, even if both players go and try to go for the center. So here we have a scene where they are fighting, and since both players can check or choose what they want to see, they can zoom in. It's easier than before to kind of see where the ants and the termites are. So we would argue that that goal is kind of covered. And now I would like to show a quick gameplay video so that you can get a feel for it. And if you focus on the right side here with the ants, you can see by just placing pheromones, the player is guiding them to food sources. The ones with food are trying to go back home. And the player, at the same time, is guiding another group to a secondary food source. And now he's using the blue pheromones to show them where they should go to bring the food home. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to show the whole match. It would be very interesting because the players were about to fight an epic battle for the center of the map where most of the food is. Yeah, exactly. But believe it or not, there's something even more exciting than watching our game, which is playing the game. And you can do that after the presentations. We'll be in the other room. We're waiting for you. You can try it out, experience the epic battles for yourself. And in that sense, we'll see you later, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tiny Shopping. Next, we have the team and game called No Spoilers.
Okay. Hi everyone. Yeah, welcome to our presentations. First off, one small question. Did you know that Snape kills Dumbledore? On an entirely unrelated hand, our game's called No Spoilers. So let's start.
Hi, thanks to everyone for coming to our presentation. So let's talk about No Spoilers. So it all started with some puns. We were like thinking about some potential characters to be in our game, and we were like, maybe a karate carrot, or maybe rotten tomato. And from there, we developed our idea, which is a fast-paced 2D top-down game with randomly generated map. So now my team members are going to tell you more.
So similar to the first group, in order for our game to be exciting every time we play, we decided to do procedural map generation. So our approach was to have these predefined tiles that are then arranged on a grid. At first, we actually drew every single possible version of one of those tiles, which was quite cumbersome and also led to a lot of bugs like this, where the doors were in the light simply due to typos, etc. At a later stage, we then completely scrapped this approach out of an unrelated reason, actually, but this then helped us a lot with making our program simpler.
Yes, to that unrelated reason, this is how our game looked when we did that change that you mentioned, because it looked quite bland, it looked quite boring. The gameplay was not that fun because it was not exciting to look at. So what we did is we drew each wall separately and have hand-drawn assets for each wall that is possible and each corridor that is possible, which creates a lot more varied experience of it all. We also have hand-drawn animations, and all the assets are hand-drawn. Yes. So now to the most important part. How does our game look or play like? And for that, we have prepared a little bit of a showcase, and Flo is going to comment that.
Our tale begins with a loving grandmother
Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So for choose, we also added like item pickups because from playtesting we figured out that just killing enemies is kind of boring. So we have a bubble that you don't get hit by enemies, and also we added more enemy variety. There's a tomato. Ah, yes. And a slide because just kicking and dodging was too boring. There's the exit, then you get into the deeper level, and so you can play the game and try to go as far as you can. Up to infinity, basically, if you have enough time. And there you spoiled.
Yes, and we all invite you to play our game afterwards in the vernissage, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And I wish you a great evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, team No Spoilers. Next, Into the Mist. Where are they? Here.
grandmother gathering fruits for her grandchildren, only for them to scatter in a chaotic tumble. Witnessing this, a brave ant hero rallies its colony to reclaim the treasures, venturing into a world of lurking spiders and hidden dangers. This is where our adventure truly begins.
Yes, welcome to Into the Mist, where you play a hero ant exploring the misty meadow surrounding your ant colony. Your goal is to find food and guide your fellow ants towards it to help your colony survive as long as possible. You will also count enemies along the way, and you can decide whether you want to fight them or avoid them. But be aware, if you decide to fight them and haven't collected any upgrades yet, it will be quite hard, like this poor ant is about to find out. In the following, I'll take you to a quick journey through our project, and then we'll talk a bit about the game mechanics and the game design. So we started our game with a paper prototype and developed a full board game from this. Most of the game rules were established in this phase. Then after 2 weeks, we had the first playable demo, and along the way, we got closer and closer towards how the game looks now. This was the playable test build, where all the mechanics were implemented, but the balancing was way off. For the final release, we also added a leaderboard and the ability to set the game seed, so you can train your own run and compare it to other players.
So initially we started off by sketching our vision. We wanted a mysterious, eerie, and limbo art style game. So then we generated characters with AI models, got inspiration from these, and created our sprites. The two main visual components that we wanted was one, to have pheromone trails, which had a high contrast to the game background. And secondly, to add a limited vision range that would emphasize on the eerie and mysterious game atmosphere.
Now to the game mechanics. Our core mechanics is the pheromone trail, where you connect the food to your hive. Meanwhile, your colony's food stores are drained over time and regained by harvesting food. Once it's empty, you will begin to starve. On the map, you will encounter several enemies with various attacks, some of which will be telegraphed. Once you defeat an enemy or fully harvest a food item, you will get to pick an upgrade. We have permanent upgrades, health restore, and additional attack types, which have certain conditions. Must be met before you can see them. Having unlocked an attack, you can switch between them freely.
We then let players with different gaming skills test out a game. The major positive feedback we received was the intro, the music, the pheromone systems, and the upgrade capabilities. The major critiques we received was that the attackers were too challenging, so we introduced new attack patterns, which was shown earlier. And also at that time, the balancing led to rapid starvation, so we introduced 3 difficulty levels with different stats. And finally, the vision range was too limiting for some players, so we introduced a gradient for the vision range so that the obstacles and the attackers are visible beforehand.
Now to the challenges we faced along the way. First, we tried to hand-draw sketches and then have AI create variations of them. This led to low resolutions and a lot of artifacts. We then settled to render 3D models in Blender. This allows for arbitrary sizes. As a library, we used Monogame Extended. It has many helpful things and documentation. But as we tried to implement that, the stable version crashed, so we had to switch to dev because it apparently wasn't stable. And then when we tried to implement animations, it crashed at runtime because they made a package upgrade without testing the change. So we created a variation of the repository with that change reverted. For animation creation, there was a tool, but the instructions were to compile it yourself, which doesn't work, the project being dead for 5 years. So we had to define them ourselves with something like this.
Yeah. Finally, we want to invite you to try to beat our scores in the playtesting afterward, or download the game from itch.io.
Thank you so much. Thank you, team. Into the mist. And we'll move to the next one right away. I'd like to present the game Bazaar Bounty.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to our presentation for Bazaar Bounty. Our game is a roguelike dungeon crawler where you get to play as a medieval knight trying to clear the infestation of the bazaar from various enemies, and along the way you get various fruits and vegetable power-ups and make your job easier, essentially.
Okay, so first I'm going to introduce some design ideas we had for the game. So we had this fruits and veggies power-ups of our game. So when you clear a level, you can choose from several fruits, which will sort of boost your health, defense, or damage, and it also gives you special abilities such as infinite ammo or get a bigger sword and for a limited amount of time. And we also have this two-handed combat system where you both wield a sword and a gun. We also have this parry system, which we get some inspiration from the Soulsborne series, where you can see you can use the weapon to deflect enemies' bullets back to them. And we have this maps. What? The first thing is that the walls and floors are randomized. If you can see, there's some noticeable pattern differences in the maps. Also, we have this randomized enemy spawning where the location and the type of enemies are randomized in the maps. And we also have many map layouts, and they will come in randomized orders for increasing difficulties throughout the process of clearing each level. And the last thing is our enemy AI. Since we have many types of enemies, they have differentiated AI, which controls their ability to path finding and also their attack patterns. So.
And I'll walk you through some of the changes we made along our development cycle. So we actually tried out a bunch of different visual kind of like ideas. And then we kind of went through like a entire overhaul of our like color scheme and the visual kind of theme to fit the bazaar style a bit more. You can also see, actually, previous slide. See, we actually made variations to our player animations as well. Unfortunately, it's not playing currently, but yeah. And the UI also was kind of overhauled. From our alpha build to our actual release build. You can see there's a lot more going on. We tried to make things clear and kind of used a lot of feedback from the playtesters. And we also kind of added a lot more enemies, a lot more just content like power-ups, stages. You can see there's a lot of pilot swaps that we did for the enemies.
So next is a challenge that we met in our game. So the first main challenge that we met is about the map generation. So we used Tile to create our maps, but we have to implement everything from scratch to integrate the Tile files into our game. And we spent a lot of time on that. And the second challenge is about the path finding and the collision. For example, because the texture size of the enemy is larger than the grid tiles, so sometimes the enemies will get stuck on their way. So we have to modify our navigation system and try to avoid the enemies from walking the border. So that kind of fixes the problem. Yeah, here is a demo of our game. And yeah, we have different enemies, and you can attack them with different like melee, both melee and ranged weapons. And also you can try to deflect the bullets from enemies. And after the stage is clear, you can choose fruits to strengthen your. Then that's all about our game. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bazaar Bounty. We're already coming to the last game in this first section, the last game in the fruits and vegetables section. And the last game is called Fruitful Defense. Over there.
Hello, everyone. We're here to tell you a little bit more about Fruitful Defense, the tower of defense game that we built in the course of this semester. And like all the other teams, I want to take you on a journey of our development process. And of course, like all other stories, this one starts with an idea. And our idea was to create a tower defense game, but we wanted to put a little twist on it. If you know tower defense games, usually you get money by killing enemy units. But we wanted to make it so that you have to make a choice to either place your units on the map as a defense or place them into a shopping cart to sell them to get gold by doing that. You can see that in one of our earliest sketches here, where it's showing a cart and some units on the map. To accompany that, we added, or wanted to add, an AI, of course, so that the enemy units would path towards these carts and make it difficult for the player to actually defend it. And to differentiate ourselves from like ChatGPT or NPCs that just walk into walls, we wanted to call our AI Smart AI. Here you can see a very early physical prototype that we built. We basically evaluated like different HP values for units or how much damage or range they should have, and actually had quite a bit of fun playing this. You can also see one of our earliest Smart AI versions at work here. That was Eve doing the job in the background. We then decided on a few unit types that we wanted to add. On the left side, the fruits, the defenders, the good guys, for example, the apple that heals your units, or the pineapple guy that's just a guy with a machine gun. And on the right side, the junk food, the evil guys, the big hamburger with a lot of HP that's rather slow, or the lollipop that's really fast but fragile. Of course, no journey is without difficulties. On the left side here, you can see, I guess you wouldn't call it smart AI, barely even AI, that is trying to path towards the pineapple, but it keeps getting stuck on the shelves in the shopping mart. On the right side, an improvement to that, the enemies are actually attacking the defenders, but they could instead be attacking the shopping cart, which would lower the value. In the course of the semester, we made lots of progress. On the left side again here, you can see our AI actually at work here. The enemies walk around the range of the pineapples to destroy the contents of the cart. And once the cart is empty, which means we won't get any gold anymore, they turn on the remaining defenders. On the right side, you can actually see a very interesting statistics. It shows the code contributions per weekday. Funnily enough, there's a lot of contribution on Sunday, which might be due to the fact that on Monday was when we had to do our hand-ins. And on Tuesday, there's even more contributions, which is also funny because that's when the lectures are. I'm assuming that's because we were so inspired by the lecture that we just wanted to add so much to our code. To give you a little side-by-side comparison, here's a demo of one of the very first playable versions that we had. You can see it's very basic. In the bottom left, there's a few buttons to place units, and then you can even have some inventory system to take them back out and put them on the map. The enemies will then path towards the cart and try and attack. And now compare that to our final result that we have here. There's a lot more going on. The top right shows you your current level. We have 10 levels. There's player abilities that you can use during the defense phase. There's statistics that show you how well your units did. We have the shop that shows you actually what you're buying, so you kind of know what units you're placing on the map. And we even added a Twitch integration, which sadly we can't show you here, where the viewers can vote what kind of unit should be in the next wave. And with that, we've already reached the end of our journey, and I'd like to thank everyone for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now we're moving to a new section in the grocery store, Sweet Treats section, and we'll start with the first team. Their game is called Tic-Tac-Dough. Where are they? Here. Right. Welcome. Oh. Looks like we may have a problem with the video.
I quickly go back.
Let's try again. One last time. Yes.
So, hi, we're Meridian Team 1, and this is Tic-Tac-Toe. We were inspired by some great chaotic party games, like, for example, Overcooked or Moving Out, so we wanted to create one ourselves. And our idea for a unique twist is that we wanted to have some really janky controls in there. So you're not just fighting against the clock or fighting against some enemies, but you're sort of fighting against the game itself, trying to navigate the store, not bump into too many things, so pretty much like real life. The gameplay loop is as simple as 1, 2, 3. The first step is that you have to drive around the store and collect ingredients that you need. The video is not playing. Yeah, there would be a video playing. Yeah, step 2, you saw it in the trailer, so I guess it should be fine, is you drive up to an oven, place your ingredients in there, and then out comes a baked piece, in this case a donut, because it's Team Donut. And then, in the third step, this one actually works, you drive down to the tic-tac-toe board, and you place it there, and whoever wins the tic-tac-toe ends up winning the game as a whole. So how did we get here? It all started with this first initial sketch that we had, where you can already see the main elements, the tic-tac-toe board on the bottom, the groceries, etc. Now I think the video is again not playing. Oh, let's... It should be a video of our progress, like there you can see it.
Maybe I can help.
Maybe.
We have remote control from over there. Berge is the expert. He's fixing everything. Okay, he's shaking his head. Let's skip the video. You can narrate it.
Yeah, so you would have seen our game evolve through the steps, paper prototype, and then our final version in the end. So yes, along the way we had to do quite a lot of playtesting to figure out what works and what doesn't. And one interesting example of this is our controls. So we first had one player pushing the cart and the second player sitting inside with two hands trying to grab items left and right. But it turns out this two-hand controller was actually very cumbersome. It never felt good, it always felt convoluted. So we ended up going with just one hand instead, which you can see here on the right. But this then also had some downstream effects, because now the player sitting in the cart, the feedback was that it was just really boring. It was just really boring. So they only had one stick to move, and they only had to press one button to pick things up. And so with this, we decided to maybe combine the two, and this ended up becoming a new game mode where only 2 players are, and they control all the aspects of the cart by themselves. But this then, again, in turn freed up 2 more controllers, so we could even implement a third mode where we have 2 carts per team. So this ends up being even more chaotic, much more chaotic than our initial idea. We also have some power-ups, the total of 6 power-ups. They have some interesting and complex interactions. The star, which you would have seen in the video, has purely defensively, but some of the other ones, like our freeze and breeze guns, can be used to either push the enemy away before they get to you, so a defensive way, or you could, for example, try to go out and freeze them before they can get to their item, so it burns in the oven, so they can be used in very strategic and different ways. And yes, other than this, we also have many other cool things. Here, the video actually works. You can see we have a full day cycle. We have some cool things going on with the sound. It's in stereo space. The sound changes based on the speed of the cart, the power-ups, full menu, etc. And yes, with this, sadly, we couldn't show the video, but we hope you might now even more check out our game afterwards. So come by, and yes, thank you for listening.
Thank you. I can't wait to try out the Pedro. All right. Next up, Faye's Sweet Adventure.
All right, welcome everyone. So we're the developers of Faye's Sweet Adventure, the sugary puzzle platformer. Well, you already know that. You've seen the trailer. I don't need to explain that again. But so for our story, we started out kind of as most other teams during the group forming phase. And we had a very balanced team, right? We had some people who like to do music, some people who like to do story, a lot of people who wanted to do art. But one thing is we can see there were some people in this class which really they had this great idea, this grand plan and their vision, and they really wanted to implement that. We had none of those people on our team. We had no idea what we wanted to do. So, eventually we settled on a puzzle platformer, 2D, so this is easier. And we suddenly had this idea. We could make, to fit the theme, we could make baking actually our mechanics. You can mix together ingredients, bake them, and then top them off. And you could get, every one of those could get special power-ups. You could have physics with water flowing, and you have to mix it in the world. So that was way too much. we did eventually realize that was too much, and we had to simplify a lot. It was actually pretty bad because even our own team didn't know what we were doing. Like everyone had their own idea of what this game was supposed to be. But eventually, we did end up with this, which is supposed to be playing. Aha! All right. Here is, just as a little visual break, this is one of our first prototype drawing, or I guess this is concept art, yeah. One of our first concept art of our character, and this is how it developed. I just posted this here so that you get used to my voice again, and now we can move on to something else. And I find it it's interesting. So, here is one of our biggest problems we had. What is the player trying to do here? Give you a few seconds. I mean, here is also a hint. This is what the next frame looked like. Okay, so the player was trying to place a block or like a cloud, hopefully there. I don't know, maybe he wanted to place it somewhere else and he just didn't see where he wanted to place it. So clearly that's a problem. And our solution was this. A nice beam visualizing where you're aiming and a phantom cloud showing you where you would be placing. We loved it. The players hated it. We have never received so much negative commentary than on that beam. They really, really didn't like it. Like, it wasn't even intended to be a final piece, just some placeholder art. So we put our art team onto overtime, and they came up with this wonderful thingy. And we now have a new beam, or I guess this whisk, and some particle effects to simplify all of that. And now you can rest easy and aim without, well, hopefully hating it. As a final note, one of the hardest things is really designing the levels. Because you're designing these levels, you know how they're supposed to be solved. You can solve them in like 10 seconds, but for a puzzle game, the whole idea is thinking about the levels. So in this case, really important, we had to get feedback from all of you, and we are really thankful for everyone who commented on how these levels play out, because that was so important to actually make them work. So huge thanks to everyone who helped us, and that's it. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for this enthusiastic presentation. And next up, we have a game called Kaleido. Where's the team?
Hello everyone. Our game, as you saw, is Kaleido, and this is a brief walkthrough of our creative process. Our game first started as two abstract concepts that we wanted to bring to life. The first one was that we wanted to create an IO-style size manipulation game, where the general objective is to be the biggest player, but we also wanted our game to have acceleration instead of constant velocity as an additional layer of complexity. And for that, we had to answer two questions. The first one was, how do we intertwine these two? And our answer was collisions, because in the real world, size translates to mass, and mass naturally applies to acceleration and collisions. And the second question was, does this fit the course theme? Well, if we think about balls of dough that accelerate around, collide with each other, and want to grow, to get baked, then yeah, it actually fits the course theme quite well. So first we did some physical prototyping. We decided to model our balls of dough with rigid bodies, even though they are soft, because it just felt better for the gameplay. So we took some marbles of different sizes and masses and started to just roll them around and bump them into each other and observe and take notes with what we want to translate to our game. And that helped us shape our specific idea. In our game, players control balls of dough, and they roll around the kitchen counter and bump with each other. There is cutlery, these blender blades, across the counter. And when a player collides with a blade, he gets a part of his flour sliced off, he shrinks, and that flour can be picked up by other players, or themselves again, to grow. And so the objective is to push the enemy players into these cutlery and to consume their flour to outgrow them. And of course, that leaves room for some fun ways to push this idea further. For example, having different special types of flour as power-ups, and so on. So we got to the development. First, we wanted to get our big idea bullseye right, which was the physics engine. And for that, we started with just some very simple geometric bodies, circles, basically. And we started experimenting with the code and the physics to see what we can do. And actually, that was probably the most difficult part, because it required a lot of trigonometry and some surprisingly difficult high school math. And we had this actually a running bug where things would loop into collisions. And I'll briefly try to explain what I mean. When two objects collide, intuitively, only their movement changes. Like they start moving. Yeah. They start moving in different directions. But the thing is that if we only change their velocities, which is the only thing we did initially, then in the next frame of the game, they're still in collision, because collision only depends on their positions. It doesn't depend on their movement. So the solution is to only displace them, like immediately apply some sort of displacement, which does not allow them to collide again in the next frame, so that they don't sort of loop into a collision. But then we applied this, and because there are just so many game objects, we had a lot of other bugs we had to prune. For example, what if two players collide, and then we displace them, and that causes one of the players to collide with the flour, so they consume the flour, they grow again, and now they're colliding with the other player again. So in the next frame, the collision triggers again, and we just were constantly fighting this looping into collisions bug, and really had to think about the correct order to execute all our game logic. But yeah, once we did that, it was all a matter of bringing things together, because in the meantime, our visual and sound designers were working on the visual theme and the sound atmosphere. So we just had to bring everything together and polish things up, and in the end apply a couple of objectives, like power-ups, to add another layer of fun to our game. And here you can see some brief uncut footage from the gameplay.
Oh, now you better. Get away from me. There you go.
Yep, that's about it. Thank you very much for your attention, and welcome to play our game.
Thank you, Team Kaleido. We're already arriving at the last team in this category, and the last team is called Once More Onto the Brioche.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So seeing the trailer on the big screen now, this might have been a bit too dramatic for this kind of game, but I hope you still liked it. So I would first like to tell you what the lore of our game is. So you are running a bakery, which is the last one left on Earth. Meaning people all over from the globe, they want baked goods, and they're not nice. So they attack you, and your job is to produce baked goods during the night, so that during the day you can literally throw your baked goods at the customers and feed them. Yeah, so our game has 2 phases. During the night, you simply bake, and during the day, you use the things you baked to, as you've seen it in the trailer, provide customer service. So let me give the microphone to my teammate so that he can explain to you what the basic game mechanics and stuff are.
So here is the grid on which you can build your factory. The goal is to produce as many baked goods as you can and as complex as baked goods as you can, because they will have more interesting effects in the second phase. So one of the challenges was that the players obviously have no idea what recipes exist, so that's why there's this great old book that explains everything in detail, which also in the trailer. And that's also why the player spawns right next to the book. So they hopefully learn the recipes quickly and can start to produce some nice goods for their loyal customers.
Yeah, so this was the bakery phase, where you have to automate stuff as much as possible so that you get the maximum throughput. So once this phase is over, the customers, they start arriving. So unless you feed them, they will attack the counter of your bakery. Here you can see the health dropping. And once that hits 0, then your bakery is gone and you lose. So maybe a small note, initially, so these are supposed to be customers, but as a first draft, we just came up with these little teddy bears as customers, and they looked kind of cute, so we just kept it like this. So here, these are the first drafts we had in the first couple of weeks of the course. Yeah, so we initially thought of having the whole map like this. But then since the 2 phases are separate anyway, it made more sense to just have one map for the bakery or factory and have one map for the shooter phase. Yeah, and this is our physical prototype you see here. And this is one example of how you can set more complicated production lines so that you produce more goods that you can use in the next phase. Then some challenges we came across were, so the controls were a bit funky because on the one hand you have to move in the baking phase, and on the other hand you have to be able to play stuff. So for beginners it was quite complicated to manage both of these mechanics at the same time. So we have a soundtrack in the game that was composed by one of our team members. We wanted to come up with nice particle effects. So for example, if we go here, these explosions I was thinking of, so I was the one that worked on these here. I wanted to have like actual, like when you throw a cake and it drops on the ground, of course it doesn't look like this. But in the end, this is what I had. So we had balancing issues. For example, some players that actually were quite good in the game could just produce absurd amounts during the night. And then the second phase, the shooting phase, would just become trivial because they would just spray all their ammo. There would be explosions everywhere, and suddenly then they would win easily. So this was the major challenge. So yeah, and here you see how you can push the limits of the game. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Once more onto the brioche. Okay, we're moving to the last section in the grocery store, to the frozen goods section. And here I'd like to welcome the first team that's called Breeze and Freeze.
All right, our game is called Breeze and Freeze, and it's a cooperative arena shooter. Basically, the idea we had was we wanted to make a cooperative game, which is both asymmetric, so each player has a different set of abilities, and also we wanted to basically incentivize cooperation as much as possible, so the players have to work together. Each player individually is quite weak, but when they work together, they can achieve much more. Our first is called Breeze. As his name suggests, he is an air mage. He's nimble, quite fast, but only can deal damage to enemies in a close range, so he has to get up close to be able to do damage. Our second character is called Freeze, quite the opposite. Is a slow character, but can deal damage from a long range and can freeze enemies in their tracks. And yeah, when they combine their abilities, they're much stronger, which you'll see later in the gameplay video. The adversaries are first the Strawberry, who's just your basic weak enemy, doesn't have much health, doesn't deal much damage. Then we have a Coconut, who rolls around very quickly and explodes when they get near you. The Watermelon is our ranged enemy. Basically, their job is to be as annoying as possible, and they deal damage from a distance. And then we have a Pumpkin, who's the tank enemy, has a lot of health, but moves very slowly. And of course, no game would be complete without a final boss, so that is the Pumpkin. One thing we're really proud of with our game is the visual style. We spend a lot of time basically making our game look good, and yeah, so I'd like to show you a quick progression of how it looked over the time. We started off with a board game like many others, and yeah, this is kind of what it looked like. We just were using random pieces and paper cutouts to do the abilities and hitboxes. We then moved on to a 2D implementation. Very basic. This was just to hash out the game mechanics, make sure everything worked kind of the way we were expecting. And then we spent a lot of time on the 3D graphics. So as you can see, it's a voxel style. We have a particle system. And then the last step was to basically make the environment more interesting, give our characters a world to live in. You know. And this is the game as it is now, so yeah, enjoy the gameplay.
Okay, apart from the visuals and cooperative mechanics of our game, another major focus was juiciness. Those who haven't taken this course may now wonder what this means. Essentially, a juicy game kind of reacts to everything you do and makes you, as a player, feel really powerful. The main ingredient we used to achieve this was our 3D particle system, which we built from scratch. And it just made it a lot more satisfying when killing enemies, that they don't just disappear, but they kind of burst into their parts, and you have a nice animation to look at. We've used this particle system all over the place in our game. So we used it for the players' wind abilities, for their ice abilities. We have some victory fireworks you see when you beat the game. There's some fire and laser effects that you'll see when you reach the boss. Another ingredient for the game, for the juiciness, was camera shake, loved by some and hated by others. But I guess you'd agree with me that the right coconut explosion just makes it feel a lot more powerful. And on top of that, we then also added some controller vibration that you get when you're close to the explosion and the sound effect. Before concluding this presentation, I just want to share with you 2 happy accidents that we had during our development. As penguins do a belly flop, we also wanted to add this to our game, but first it was more of a faceplant. So we tried to fix it and added a new model where the head is rotated upwards, but that just made it worse because we forgot to rotate the penguins. But we just thought this looks hilarious, so we kept it in our final game. And yeah, the penguins do a little faceplants towards the end of the dash. The other accident, debugging our game, we played around with our color settings, and we just thought that would make for a great party mode. So we did just that, added a party mode that you can unlock when you beat the game without losing your head once, and that has some flashy lights and cool music. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for your attention, and see you.
Thank you so much. By the way, exactly the same party mode we'll also have in the next room at the Apero and Vernissage. I tried it out before. All right, second team in the frozen goods section is Store Defense Manager.
Hi there, welcome to your first day as manager. Oh, signal dropped out. Let's get things started with clocking in.
So we wanted to create a different kind of tower defense game where enemies would come with a variety of health and the player needs to place towers that deal a variety of damage. Furthermore, we wanted to create an adaptive wave system that throws waves at the player which deliberately exploit gaps in the player's setup of towers. This fitted neatly with the given scenario. We would just create a grocery store and have clerks throw products at customers. However, our store should be fun, hence we wanted to create a nice atmosphere with jazzy music that gets more and more intense the less good the player performs, as well as having typical store sounds. We also wanted to have wacky characters in there, as you can see from these concept arts we made early on.
Of course, the best idea is not worth much without proper execution. So we put our heads together and tried to come up with the very best ideas to make the game really fun and exciting. But of course, we came up with way too much, and so we had to break things down again to something we called the core gameplay loop, which really defines what it is that the players are doing in our game. With this in place, we moved on to the physical prototype, which you can see here, where we had five people simulate the customers in the store and one person playing the game as the clerks. Despite the simulation-heavy nature of our game, this was really fun because it already felt like a very complex strategy game.
So our first minor hurdle was our choice in how we approach the code. So some of us were experienced with Unity, so we based our code on that, which is great. It's very versatile. We used the same basic structures, same scene graph, also components which we could use to have like incredible utility for all our objects. Only problem was until like 2 days before our first demo, we had an engine but no game. So our first release was basically just the absolute bare minimum held together by duct tape.
So yeah, if you recall using duct tape at home, duct tape makes for a great foundation. Please don't construct buildings on top of duct tape. But with a foundation in place, what did we need? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you needed one thing: more. More of everything. So here you can see like our content folder at the beginning and then towards the end of the project. We could, of course, show you everything that's in there, but that would take forever. So just play the game and you'll see most of it. One thing we can show you though, yeah, so this is some of the things that we sadly don't have time to get into. Some of the things we can show you are, of course, the visuals. So for example, this nifty looking user interface, but I'll leave the rest to our artist.
Well, so let me give you a brief history about the graphics of our game. So first, a proof of concept, so we could check our logic here. Next, some stand-in assets with Maximo animations. And finally, something more about the final design we have chosen. So, a small fun fact, the complete logic of our game is in 3D, and the assets are modeled in 3D, but despite what you can see in the gameplay is that the game is completely rendered in 2D with sprite sheets. And that's a big problem because you need different, for static objects, you need different orientations. That's easy, but for animations, you need around 20 to 30 frames per character, and then that's expanding for all the orientations, and for even more complex stuff, you see, it explodes really, really fast.
So after we had suffered through the art creation process, we decided to unleash our creation on an unsuspecting world and have other people suffer for us. So we did playtesting, and here are some of the best tidbits that people gave us as feedback. So employment for students, great. Hucking pizzas at strangers, fantastic. And for us, more importantly, it felt like a lunch shift with the option to quit, so we're going in the right direction. Of course, you can't please everyone. We've got lots of contradictory feedback, but some of it actually agreed with each other, so we could build on that.
And with the feedback in mind, we added a tutorial and improved the UI design and added main menu art. And for mechanic changes, we added the ability to fire your employees, and now you also have to pay them after every day. And after the Shuri release, aside from some general improvements, we also opened a new branch for our store, and we even gained a new customer, meet Greg from accounting. And due to his almost concerning obsession with fish sticks, we also had to hire a new clerk with Captain Igloo the sailor. And now let's clock out and with a nice gameplay video.
One of the most, our breakthrough idea was the adaptive wave system and the adaptive music. So please listen to the music getting more intense as the customers crawl through your grocery store. So I'm told to wrap up, so please come by our stand, the Vernissage, download the game on itch.io, and have fun with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Store Defense Manager. The next game is called Mold Mayhem.
Thank you very much. We're Team Winterhold 3 presenting you our game Mold Mayhem. As you've seen it from the trailer, it's quite a chaotic, fast-paced twin-stick shooter similar to game like Binding of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon, or Hotline Miami. But where we are a bit different is with our core gameplay mechanic that's centered around the theme that you are a mold trying to infiltrate the fridge and taking control of different foods. Whenever you kill them, they don't disappear but stay on the field as zombified versions of the character. That allows you to take control of them and use also their different abilities for nice gameplay synergy. As here, I was in a sticky situation, but with the swapping mechanic, I could really lure my enemies into a trap and really shoot them down in a nice way. Yes. The switching mechanic is also quite important because each character has different kind of weapon system that allows you, for example, to use a shotgun for spread out damage, a slower but more effective sniper rifle, the regular rifle, and also a rocket launcher, which, yes. This game idea of a twin-stick shooter was already here quite early on because it's one of our most favorite game genres in our team. And also the switching mechanic was basically one of the first idea we have. While playtesting it on a board game, it also felt quite nice and was a nice idea. However, one challenge that we always had was, is there enough incentive for the player to actually use this changing mechanic? Wouldn't they just run around without switching characters at all? So we had multiple mechanics trying out, like timers. Should the characters decay? Should we have more power-ups? Should we have even larger maps? Because switching is the fastest way of movement. And this kind of a negative feedback, because with many mechanics, the balancing was of course difficult, but also for player tester it was kind of hard to understand. But then in a second iteration, or the current version with way less mechanics, we figured out that the switching mechanic is actually fun enough that players use them without additional incentives. And also the game is quite hard, but that was a welcome from our audience because they generally enjoyed the steep learning curve and they always wanted to get good and jump into another game when they actually lost the challenge. Then, as you have also seen or heard from our soundtrack, we made it ourselves. We always try to aim that the game feels more also have a more silly characteristics, which also the first concept arts on the right side, on the left side, sorry, shows you. We also had the idea of chicken McNuggets in the form of dinosaurs roaming around, but then we opted for this cartoon style. And as you can see, even food molds when you defeat them, and yes, that's basically our game. If you enjoy fast-paced and challenging games, check our booth and also vote for our team, Winterhold 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mold Mayhem. We have only 3 games left. And then we'll move on to the awards. Next game is called Some Like It Cold.
Be the last one standing. Choose your champion. Collect power-ups. Escape the heat wave. Or perish trying. Win enough trophies and collect your reward.
Yeah. You can go. Hello everyone, we are Winterhold Team 4 and we're thrilled to be presenting our game Some Like It Cold today. It is a multiplayer racing game set in the Egyptian desert in the time of Cleopatra. In the scorching heat of the desert, Cleopatra finds herself craving some ice cream. Consequently, she declares a race and offering great rewards to the first player who delivers it to her. We were pretty set on the desert theme early. Like here you can see our very first meeting. We had the first hand-drawn map and we agreed on the core mechanics. In this slide you can see us in the process of crafting a physical prototype, which was very hard for a racing game with a moving window. It was very chaotic. The process of making the prototype and playing it was very hard, but we found it really useful. On the bottom left, you can already see most of the main elements of the game already set.
So for our racetrack, we used a procedural generation algorithm. This is something we started working on very early during the project. And we already used it for the very first version of our game. So here you can see a graph where we just added some sine curves on top of each other. And we then used these as the borders of our track, which worked really well.
On the slide, you can see the characters available for now. We have Elliot in the middle, the delivery man, our very first character. We have Pingu the penguin. Penguins are a recurring theme tonight in the grocery store theme. Melty the ice cream, Noah the Egyptian god, and Julius Freezer, a rumored lover of Cleopatra.
So a core mechanic of our game is the ice cream meter, which acts similar to a health bar. It slowly drains over time naturally during the game, and also gets reduced when you take damage from any source. You can collect ice cubes, which are randomly distributed on the track to fill the bar back up. We also have obstacles. So far, these are cacti, which deal damage when you run into them, and rocks, which bounce you back when you run into them. These obstacles are also randomly distributed on the track.
Then a really important mechanic of the game are the items. And they also have a lot of balancing questions that arise with them. I'm going to give you one example for the Medusa item. It summons Medusa, which petrifies the first player. So naturally, you don't want the first player to get the item from an item box. However, it could still happen that the player in second place, as a player in second place, you get the item, and then you get first place, and now you have the item. Now the question arises, what happens now when you use the item? Do you petrify yourself, or should the item just vanish and nothing happens? Well, first we thought you petrify yourself because skill issue, get good. Don't use the item when you're in front. But then we saw that the player would just be in the front with an item that he can't use, and it just felt really horrible. And so we went to the second thing, now the item just vanishes.
So one more very exciting mechanic of the game is the heat wave, which spawns on the left side of the screen at some point during the game. Players that are inside the heat wave take increased damage over time, so this gives another incentive to the players to stay ahead of the other players.
After the playtesting phase, we received mixed opinions about the length of the race. Some people thought it was too short, others too long. So we made a compromise and made it an option to choose the number of rounds you need to win. As you can see here, the trophies fill out when you win a round. Well, enjoy. As you can see, all the main elements fall into place. We have the ice cubes with the number on them that indicates how many players can pick them up. Same for the item cube. You can see some of the items in use. We have a flame aura to hurt other people. The Medusa, as Nicola already explained. The aura again. Again. And here you can see the speed boost. And yeah, and if you win, you're declared champion, and you collect your reward. We also made customized rewards based on the context of the characters. And on that note, I should mention that despite not having any background in digital art, all the art in the game is hand-drawn by us. Thank you for listening. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, team. Some like it cold. Second last presentation for the game Freezer Frenzy.
Hello. We are Erase Games with the game Freezer Frenzy. So our game takes inspiration from Hotline Miami and Initial D. So we wanted to create a racing game, a drifting game, where the goal is to pick up your frozen goods and leave the store as quickly as possible. So the development process started with our physical prototype. So we went to the store, got a lot of spaghetti, and created this map and tried out our game. We tried like different types of maps, a little bit of like map design there. But to fully test it out, we created this digital version. So we created a top-down 2D racing game where we made most of our like core logic, some of the physics, some of the map design, and yeah.
However, during playtesting, we got a lot of feedback that although people liked the general design of our game, they didn't like the controls super much. And in the end, we felt super limited by the just simple 2D space. So, to fix this, on a solemn night on a bus from Zurich to Prague, a single wayward soul from our team has decided to single-handedly remake the game in 3D. So, as you can see, all the game logic stayed the same, but we made, as all demos should be, all the models were made in Blender from the basic objects. The textures were made in Microsoft Paint. And after a glorious, like 12-hour crunch, we ended up with this 3D demo. So, and after the other team members woke up, we immediately agreed that it was the right decision to make.
So with the sudden realization that our game is now suddenly 3D, we had to settle on a new art style. So for the 2D version, we had initially visualized our game as a pixel game. So the 3D equivalent of that would naturally be voxels. To make our models from scratch, we used a voxel editor called Magica Voxel. And here you can see some of the renders of the player card, the cash register, some item shelves, and some fruit shelves, all handmade.
Yeah, so in parallel to this work, basically as soon as we had a working program, we started to tune all the parameter of the physics and the controls. So here you can see some of the parameters. There were a lot. And all of them basically influence each other, and it was quite a lot of work to get this tuned. Also because if the settings were good or not was quite subjective. We were not always in agreement which settings were good. And yeah, one thing we also realized is that making the simulation or the racing physically accurate is not always good for gameplay.
All right, and with our parameters tuned, we went into playtesting.
Got a lot of feedback from our playtesters, and a lot of playtesters actually agreed that like the core gameplay was solid, the drifting felt good, the driving felt good, but our game really was lacking spice. There wasn't much to do except drive around the supermarket that was more or less empty. So we started adding more features. The first of which was Greg, who kind of became the mascot of our game, who's a forklift driver working in the supermarket, and he is constantly getting in your way and trying to stop you from causing chaos in a supermarket. But if he gets in the way too much, you can actually freeze him to stop him getting in the way. And there's a bunch more mechanics that we added in the past weeks. We added a multiplayer mode, so you now have a split-screen multiplayer with up to 4 players. We added medals you can win when you beat hour times, more or less. We added a boost feature to make the driving more exciting and the aforementioned freeze power up. And with that, I'd like to show you some gameplay of the current state of the game. And this is our level designer, Arnie, who's quite good at the game. Really racing through the supermarket, picking up items super quickly, bouncing off the walls to optimize his path, avoiding Greg in some situations, more in some situations, less skillfully. Yeah, he should be done with the level fairly quickly, so it's a very fast-paced game, very arcadey. And yeah, 28 seconds, which is quite a good time. And with that, I'm very happy to announce that our game will release on Steam at the start of July. And we will also have a limited amount of beta keys available later in the testing session. Our store page sadly isn't live yet, but it should be live within like the next 1 or 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ooh. Excited to see the Steam page. Fantastic. So that was Freezer Frenzy. And now to the last but not least presentation, Team Culinary Showdown.
Hi everyone, we are Team Culinary Showdown, a top-down battle arena turf war. Since we are pretty few, we're going to introduce the team members. We have Satu, he's our producer, lead developer, and in general, fearless leader. Then we have Horan, he did basically all the visual direction, and he drew and animated basically everything you see in-game by hand. Myself, Jon Gunnar, I did sound effects, music, and programming. And then we have Styrmir, who's in human resources. We ended up taking most inspiration from multiple game titles, such as ARMS, Splatoon, Brawl Stars, and Super Animal Royale. Basically, we just wanted a really hectic, fast-paced, and easy-to-pick-up game. Something you can play with your friends, but something that's also difficult enough to not make you bored immediately. The actual point of the game is to gather resources, the twist being that the resources are also the ammo you use to fight other players. Leading us to the backstory, we are in a post-apocalyptic world where 2 food companies, Frozen Goods and Hot Meals, have these different opinions on what to do with food. One of them, Frozen Meals, wants to freeze everything and keep it for the people to be able to get it later. And then Hot Meals want to immediately distribute food to the starving populace. And they meet in these dilapidated grocery stores and fight to gather as much food as possible. So the gameplay is actually relatively simple. The player actions are just picking up food items, processing them, and then shooting out these processed food items, as you can only hold 5 at a time. But we also wanted to make some special abilities, such as path blocking, which the penguin can also do, it's just not playing. So the salamanders will blow up stuff by throwing superheated pizzas, while the penguins will freeze stuff by throwing deep frozen pizzas. The salamander does path blocking by blocking the path over water, and then the penguin does the same thing by making frozen ice walls. We also have path creation, again, where the salamanders can break through walls and the penguins can freeze over water. Here's just a short overview of development from the initial paper prototype and then back to the completed game that we have now. We also wanted to show you guys something about our visual character development. Håron actually started work on doing the character sprites basically from the beginning. And as you can see, we sort of moved away from having them be sort of triangular and edgy to much more softer, rounded shapes. We wanted the game to be really cute, and that also motivated our UI and our sound effects. Now, the biggest challenge we faced was that people didn't understand the game. They didn't understand the game mechanics, they didn't understand the point scoring system, so we were forced to make a tutorial, which I would love to show you if the videos worked. Essentially, it's just 4 different rooms, each room for any game mechanic, with also some written text instructions, which also serve as a way to show you the backstory of the game. Yeah, here's a short video of our gameplay. We have 3 human players playing against 1 bot. And as you can see, you sort of start out by gathering as much as you can, but then it quickly turns into a chaotic war, trying to fight and hold as much as you can while trying to get as much as you can from the other players. That's practically it. We're very excited to play the game with you guys. See you later.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the last team. Phew, 16 teams. It's amazing to see how much creativity and work goes into this. Remember, in the first year, there were only 4 or 5 teams. And if you've created a video game yourself, you know how much work it is. So, we're moving on to the most exciting part, the Audience Award. For the first time, actually, this year, we created these beautiful glass trophies. First prize, golden, silver, and bronze award for the teams, so for the jury award and for the audience award. Consider this a tangible token of appreciation for all the work you put into your game. And we're starting right now the voting system. Yes, exactly, everyone, phone. The voting system is active. Scan the QR code or enter this URL in your browser. You can only vote once, of course. Select the best team, the one you preferred, your favorite team. And just to remind you again which one is which, we'll play very quick trailers in loop to remind you, starting now. So, did everyone vote? Not yet. We'll show it one more time. There's still some time left. Starting now. Okay, that was your chance to vote. I hope everyone in the room got a chance to vote. The Wi-Fi was a bit slow with so many people, and also the people over there in the live stream from wherever you are got a chance to vote. We're moving to the jury award first before we do the analytics on the votes. We are very lucky to have the very kind support of the game studio, Studio Gobo in Brighton in the UK. They are a AAA game studio that has worked on big hits, actually, one of the most recent being Hogwarts Legacy. And they took the builds, the versions the students created, into their studio for the game developers. And the studio then organized the playtesting sessions with the professional developers to evaluate the games and select the winners. This is what it looked like. And we're joined now by Nick Grover. He's the Q&A lead of the studio, and he will tell us everything about the playtesting session and the winners. Let's see, Nick, you hear me on Zoom.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Fantastic.
Hi Fabio.
Thanks so much for joining. I'll give the stage to you.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me along to your final presentations again. Looks like you got quite an old photo of me there. My hair's gone a little bit whiter over the last few years, but I'll have to update that on Teams. This is, I want to say, I think like the 5th year I've been able to do this. So, although Studio Gobo has been doing it for longer than that. But whenever I send a mail around the studio to find volunteers to look at the games created on the course, every year I always get a lot of responses from people saying they've been looking forward to this. This year, as a studio, we're actually busier than ever working towards a big milestone for our own project. But despite that, I still got a record number of volunteers, which was a relief since you've made a record number of games this year. There's a bit more background on who we are. Yeah, as Fabi said, we're a full-service development team here in the UK. We've worked on a variety of different games over the years, from Disney Infinity to Piranha and Hogwarts Legacy, as you mentioned, to name but a few. But what this means is we've got people working in every discipline you need to make a computer game. And the volunteers who've been looking at your games are a great cross-section of the studio. We've had artists, designers, engineers, animators, dev testers, and producers all looking at your games this year, with a mix of disciplines playtesting each one. In fact, each game has been looked at by at least 3 different people, and they've all given me their feedback, all of which has been collated and sent over. Hopefully by now you've all had the chance to see it and digest it. I hope you find it useful, both if you decide to develop your games further or to give you an insight into the kind of things to consider in your future projects, wherever they may be. But feedback, is only part of what we are asked to do here. As you know, we also have the honour of choosing the jury winner, so everybody who fed back on the game also scored them. I've collected all the scores, worked out the average, and I can say that the results are very, very close indeed. In particular, there's actually barely anything in it between the top 7 games. But for the purposes of tonight, I've just been asked to reveal the top 3. And I believe, I know, because Fabio just showed us, this year you've got some great little trophies, which makes it a little bit more exciting. The stakes are slightly higher. So, getting straight into it, I can start by announcing that the game that came 3rd is Frozen Goods, Breeze and Freeze.
Fantastic. Big congratulations, Breeze and Freeze. Maybe wave one more for the camera. Big round of applause for Breeze and Freeze. Yep.
Yeah, we really like the asymmetrical character design in this one. Giving each player their own unique attacks and then adding combo damage on top of that was a nice touch. And complemented the great variety of enemies you put in the game as well. We particularly appreciated the boss fight, the Pumpkin. We also liked the art style of the tutorial, which gave a really good introduction to the controls and mechanics in the game. As I say, we put together some feedback. So one of the things that we came up with was whilst we like the asymmetrical character design, we think there could be a bit more iteration on the balance between the 2 players. We found Orange harder to play and a fair bit weaker. We also found it hard to tell if we were doing damage to the enemies, so we'd recommend spending some time investigating how to improve the readability in battles. But overall, the game was really solid and was challenging, fun, that stressed us out, but in a good way. So well done to the Breeze and Freeze team.
Yeah.
So moving on, I'm pleased to announce our 2nd place game. Is Sweet Treats Tic-Tac-Toe.
Tic-Tac-Toe. Congratulations. Well deserved. Big congratulations. Yes, one more applause.
Yeah, it was a great idea having 2 sides battling out through a game of tic-tac-toe wrapped up in gameplay that was part Overcooked, part Supermarket Sweep. It created chaotic fun atmosphere that we loved. We liked the art style. We appreciated the variety of models, modes that were on offer. It even felt like you captured the frustration of trying to push a shopping trolley around, which I think you mentioned in your presentation. Bigger, more varied shopping lists, more maps, and some iteration on the power-ups would really help take this game to the next level. Also, look into other ways to really ratchet up the pressure and accelerate the gameplay when there's a stalemate. We had one game where the current method for resolving a stalemate went on and on for a few minutes before finally creating a scenario where one of us could win. It did feel a bit like we were stuck in a loop for a while. So think about what you could try to increase the tension and bring the game to a more satisfying conclusion when that happens. But all in all, we thought this game was really well made, great fun, and something we can imagine playing with friends. So congratulations to the Tic-Tac-Toe team.
Yay!
This just leaves me to announce our choice for this year's jury prize. But just before I do, I just want to say a massive well done to all of the students. Every year, we're impressed by the overall quality of the games and the ideas coming out of the course, and this year's no exception. As I said earlier, the scores were all really close, so you should all be really proud of what you've achieved in such a short period of time. On behalf of everybody at Studio Gobo, I want to wish you all the best of luck with whatever comes next for each of you. And so, to our winner. I am delighted to announce that this year we have chosen Frozen Goods, Some Like It Cold.
Some Like It Cold. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. Well deserved. One more. Big applause for Some Like It Cold.
We had huge fun playing this. You got some nice character designs, good tech for generating your tracks, plenty of game mechanics for building the tension. The wall of fire pushing all the surviving players towards the right of the screen, while it keeps getting faster, makes the anticipation of what the track's going to throw at you next all the more anxiety-inducing. We lost count of the number of times we were desperately trying to get out of the fire, only to bounce off a rock and off the left of the screen. To some extent, you only really appreciate how fast and frantic one round has got when you start the next one. We did find that this made the start of the next round feel a little bit slow compared to the later stages, so you might want to consider finding a way to make the earlier parts of the round a bit more exciting while still giving yourself the scope to continue to ramp up the tension as the round progresses. And another byproduct of how fast and furious the game gets is that we often felt that we no longer had time to look at the HUD to see how much health we had left or what pickups we currently had available. So it'd be good to look at ways to communicate this better to the players, although admittedly it's not an easy problem to solve in a game that's going at this kind of pace. But yeah, some more variety to the hazards of the tracks, perhaps some stats to the characters, so the choice is more than just an aesthetic one. And you've got the makers of a game that people would happily buy for some Saturday night, some Micro Machines style party gaming. Overall, we loved it. So big congratulations to the Some Like It Cold team. And to all the staff and students, of course. Thank you again for inviting me along today and for letting us play test all your games. Take care and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Nick, and everyone at Studio Gobo for helping us. We really appreciate the time and effort. All right, for the last business here, the Audience Awards, I was handed the secret red envelope to announce the winners. On third, I'll keep the envelope. On the third, put it here. On the third place, category fruits and veggies, with, wow, your handwriting is really bad, 96 votes, the allegory of the carrot. This is the bronze. Please take one. Congratulations, everyone. Maybe stand here in the middle for the camera. Big round of applause for third place jury award, audience award. Move them over there. All right, moving on to the second place. From the category Sweet Treats with, I'm sorry, I can't write the number. The team Face Sweet Adventure. Second place. Big congratulations. Congratulations, 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 congratulations. So one big round of applause for second place. And now, first place, we actually have a draw. This sometimes happens. We have exactly the same number of votes. We have only one set of awards, but we'll simply make more. That's an easy solution. So for now, both teams have to kind of share for the picture. You have to share one award, but we'll make more, and you can come pick them up next week. So the two teams, one team from Sweet Treats, one team from Frozen Goods. We have Tic-Tac-Toe and Breeze and Breeze. Congratulations, so you have to share one for today. You have to share one. And you have to share one. You have to share one, and you have to share one. Yeah, there's one more. So, fantastic. One more round of applause for both teams. Audience Award 2024. Tic-Tac-Toe and Breeze and Freeze. Fantastic. Thanks so much, teams. This brings us to the end of the presentations and awards. We want to thank everyone so much for joining here in the room and, of course, online too. Especially thank you to the team who made it possible. Berge there, mixing everything. Violaine, Doriano, also Fraser and David, who are in the other room. We're now moving to the Apro Vernissage after party. We are at HGE7. The after party is in the room CAB F22. If you exit this building, not towards Polyterrasse, but towards Rammistrasse to the tram stop, turn left, walk a bit until you see this building. And then don't enter here in this door, but take a left and enter the Stutz. Maybe take a picture if you've never been there. With this, I would like to thank so much for coming and see you soon.